back to the Real Estate Huddle, where we've got a special guest today. Amy Kusek has joined us, one of our awesome clients who just sold her home. We're going to talk about that in a second, but first I want to just set the stage for you. We have had a crazy pandemic market that you all remember, where homes were selling like left and right. We had many offers, multiple offers on these homes, sometimes 20, 30 offers, craziness. And then we had the last 4 years, and that did not happen very often. And these last 4 years have been a completely different story of a flat market, kind of, just basically struggling with affordability and higher interest rates. And we have not seen that same activity in most cases. However, there is a shining example here, and we're going to talk about Amy's place that just sold, and an incredible situation that happened there where we sold her family's place on 7110 South Franklin Way. And so let's talk a little bit about that, as far as Chad was heavily involved as our listing agent on that process. Do you want to talk a little bit about the activity and what we saw happen there?
Yeah, I'll start by just giving a headline, because I think we're trying to, shock and awe, and then you could talk about the neighborhood, the home itself, your family, etc. We'll give you a lot more context, but out of the gate, the headlines are: we had 141 showings, often 4 deep. We ended up with 23 offers when we locked it down after 1 week. Half of those were investors, but more importantly, the other half were not. And then in the end, we sold it for 55 over asking. But as you'll hear as we get into it, we had early offers from investors, and we were $100,000 over that. So,
well, this must have been 2021, right?
No, 2021 days ago.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I think that's really unique. The market is alive. We hoped, we didn't know, and we just found this crevice where we didn't not appeal to anybody. I think that's what's worthy of the story. So awesome. With that as a setup, talk a bit about this house.
Sure.
Where it is, anything, the history about it, your folks.
Yeah. So my mom and dad bought the house in 1986, and we were living in Salt Lake City, Utah. Graduated from high school there in 85, but my dad...
Which school in Utah?
I went to Judge Memorial Catholic High
Judge
School.
Memorial, yes.
Go Bulldogs.
A girl that plays on my daughter's team on a Utah team goes to Judge Memorial.
Well, I would have gone to Alta. That would have been my school.
Public school,
if I didn't go to the Catholic
That's awesome.
High School. Yeah.
Both my parents grew up there.
Alta? Is that why it's named that?
It's not far from...
Alta just means high, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in Sandy and Draper, and
that's awesome.
And my dad was hit by a drunk driver in 1983 while he was on business in California. He was in a coma for 3.5 months, and his boss was killed. And so he was medically retired. So he came back, and it took a while to rehab him, but he got back, and he's paralyzed on the right side of his body. But what happened during the time in Salt Lake City is they were like, we want to be closer to home. So home for us is Nebraska. So this was like halfway closer. So they moved here and bought that house in 86. And part of it was a ranch. My dad always had this vision. As I get older, I want a ranch home. And so that's part of why they thought they were going to live there forever. Yeah. And they did for a long time. My dad's very handy, and so he fixed up a lot of the stuff. But that was really their last place they wanted to live, and it was going to be their investment. And it's where they put a lot of their effort and their money into. So.
Okay. Wow.
So to orient it, this is in now Centennial. Might have been Littleton when you bought it.
It was Littleton.
Right by Arapahoe High School.
Yep.
Great little community called South Glen.
Yep.
The shops at South Glen is the mall right there.
Yep.
Very nicely located. Everything was built in the 70s. You teed up, your dad said this to me, once upon a time, he would have done all of this himself. Well, that time has passed. So you even came in, we looked at the kind of things we could do to get it ready to sell, and we gave a lot of thought to that. Do you remember anything that we looked at when we were in there?
Yeah. We were talking about just improving cosmetics, and going with paint tones that were really in right now, which a lot of those off-whites and warmer cream colors are really in. And changing out some countertops potentially to help boost the interest, and some flooring potentially, doing some of that stuff that we felt like you could get a return on. But it would take work and it would take an investment, and capital to be able to do that. So
Yeah, I think worth noting, pretty early, right after that, we brought a structural engineer. We could feel a little settling.
yeah,
So we did have to deal with that. We dealt out, that was, gosh, I'm trying to orient myself. I think that was in December.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Right
think so.
before Christmas, we had that done.
yeah,
But in the end, the conversation we had with your dad is, I was personally less confident that we could put X in and get 2X out, because there's so much more. I don't want to make that sound overly negative, but we hadn't really touched this house in 40 years.
Right, and I think part of, for me, it's like my dad really wanted to make the most amount of money out of this house. But I'm an only child, and he doesn't have the ability to be able to manage all of that. So it would fall to
That's
me.
true. Now
Yeah.
I remember what we talked about.
So I was like,
Who's
do
gonna
I
it?
want to be the contractor doing all of this, trying to work and take care of my elderly parents as an only child? And that's where it ultimately came down to talking to my dad about, is this worth it? Because we could put all this time and money into it, and we don't even know if that's going to help people want to buy it, if we're going to get the return on investment from it. Is kind of what we talked about.
Well, that makes more sense, because like, little history, Amy and her husband, and we're all friends, and I know her husband would have had to bear a bunch of
True statement.
asked him, hey, I think
and he's
I've
not
never-
handy.
yeah,
I remember taking his
I can relate to
temperature and
that.
saying, no, I'm really not that interested in that.
yep,
Anyway, that's where we were. So here we are with this house in a great part of town, built like a tank. It's
Yes.
a ranch layout.
It was a 73 build.
71?
71?
I think?
Yes, I can't even remember.
The whole
So,
neighborhood around there.
Yeah, early 70s vintage home. You guys had owned it since 86, but it was pretty 70s inside, right? It had
For
a lot of
sure.
the creature, it was a great home, great location, but very dated. And to Chad's point is like how much, like, that concept in the 70s compared to anything you see on the market today, or even the ones that have been remodeled and renovated in the area. There was
We
a
had
lot
some of those comps. You looked
yeah,
at some of those
there was
comps.
there was a lot of money put into those homes, and that's a big undertaking to go do.
It is.
So
I remember we had a practical conversation, like we could do our very best to, put some ads, I wanted to say lipstick on the pig. That's a bad analogy. But we could do the work, and the likelihood that that would match with a potential buyer's desire. And this is before I haven't even talked about investors. We just thought that was very unlikely.
yeah, there was a dark wood paneling on the walls. So yeah, you could paint them
could
and brighten
paint
it
it. We
up,
talked
but
about it.
would somebody just want to rip that out? Right. So that's
So that's where we were.
Wow.
So here we are, and we still have tons of work to do, because it is full. The entire house is full of
Wall to wall furniture.
1970s.
yeah. So how did the rest of the listing prep go? And then I want to talk later about pricing, of how
Yeah.
what this pricing strategy was like. But how did you clear everything out? How did you get all that done?
Sure. One of the things that I think was instrumental in helping us move forward is finding the next place for my dad to live, because we could then move what he needed over there, and it kind of cleared out the space for me to be able to be like, all right, what's next? So with Chad's help, like helping me identify an estate company, and then we did a clean out. It took a few months. I also had family come and help a few weekends. It took a few months,
Yeah,
but
we
we
never
got
rushed
it.
ourselves, and we were out looking fairly actively to find a new home for your dad before
That's
we
true.
said, before you guys said,
forgot
we're
about
just going to
that.
move him into assisted living where your mom is.
Yep.
But that was, that was a couple months.
It was a few months of looking. So
But yeah, we found an estate person, and that really became the point
Yes.
to get started and move.
Yeah.
And then there was a whole bunch of stuff left, and that's what you were just talking about, that there's still.
there was still
selling
more
stuff.
stuff that didn't sell. So I reached out to Corbett's, and they were awesome and came and did a clean out, and we're still getting a little dribble of money here and there. But it just made it easy to not have to manage it all myself.
Yeah. That's
So I
great.
think that's kind of the next phase. The next phase is we're ready, we're emptying it out, getting there. In the interim, we put a sign up in the window, and we started getting calls. So we got 2 unsolicited offers from investors, which not that exciting
Not that
for
exciting.
you nor me.
No, we were not wowed.
but they were similar enough that we thought we got to know more about
Yeah.
that equation. So I asked, Brock came in on behalf or with an investor friend. As I recall, he was going to put the most in. He was going to be the most aggressive on what he thought he could sell for, and was in the same range in terms of what he was willing to pay. I then brought a very close friend of mine in, who he and his wife do a lot of flips. Gave him a little bit of background, but mostly just had him talk out loud and listen. And what we ended up with is very similar, what they'd be willing to price, very similar in what they thought it would need to go in, where they thought they could be, and then the delta becomes, this is what they need to make.
Yeah.
So that's what I think we rallied around. I think God bless the investor community. They need to do what they need to do, but we don't care as much about their margins. So the pricing that we got through, and a lot of conversations, pretty candid conversations. And I will say this, that friend of mine said, I think that's a pretty good offer, one of those.
Yeah.
Says, I really think you should take that.
Yeah.
And I said, fair, but we're never going to know until we hit the market. So he said, I totally buy that.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, that's a pretty good offer. He later told me that he went home and was talking through it with his wife. And after that conversation, he almost picked up the phone and said, I really think you should take that other offer. He didn't tell me that at the time. But here's the rough math. We were getting offers. Is it okay if we talk about price point?
Absolutely, it's fine.
Okay. We were getting price offers across the investment communities around 475. And they all thought that they were going to need 125, 150 grand to go in. And then they thought the most that they could get was high sixes, maybe 720, right? Aggressive with their margin. That was kind of the equation. So as we looked at it, we looked at comps, and we knew what some of the comps of the same layout had done. We said, we know what needs to go in. We can be very transparent and clear with potential buyers of that. We also agree on what the top bound is. So let's back into price and in essence just take away the margin of an investor. So we listed at 425, 525.
525, yep.
524.9, 525. So we went on that. We went live on a Monday.
We went live on, are you talking
We
Friday?
went live on a Friday.
Yeah, we went live on a Friday, but we started, you did the promotion, I think that
Coming
Monday,
soon?
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Coming
sorry,
soon,
we went
that's
coming
right.
soon. Sorry.
Yep.
I know what I meant to say. So
Built up a lot of traction. Yeah, I remember I got a lot of phone calls.
Right,
Chad
so
got a lot
we-
of phone calls that
went
week.
Coming soon on
Yeah.
Monday. By Wednesday, we had 50 scheduled showings.
I think so, yeah.
And I think it's important to point out too that like in that area, you know, they're like a well updated single family home. Like it's interesting to see something in the fives, right? Because it's like, whoa, like that looks like a good deal, you know, and that helps people like get their eyes on it, you know, where a lot of times you're seeing stuff in the sixes, stuff like that. That's pretty common. And so I think because that price point was lower than the average, it caught investors' eyes, and it also caught owner-occupants' eyes that are like, I just need a place that I can afford, you know, and I can work on.
Yeah, we
So-
maybe missed a couple of our conversations. Like we were not averse to selling to an investor. We didn't want to do it by being put out of control of the process. So what we were hoping to do with that price point is, as I said earlier, no one is going to look at that and say, my God, that's overpriced, because it's not.
Yeah.
But we understand what we're up against, and we wanted all parties to come take a look.
Yeah.
And that's what we did really well. So
Yeah.
the first part of our strategy, pricing-wise, was to open the door to anyone, and I think we did pretty well with that. So coming soon Monday, 50 right out of the gate, and we had 3 more investor offers. 2 very similar to what we'd seen before. One which was a little better. But the more we started seeing these scheduled showings take place, and they all had agents, we're getting more and more of potential buyers who are looking at for themselves. That's what got exciting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
So
Well, and you have to ask yourself, if the pricing strategy would have been price it at 600 or price it at 575, would we have gotten the traffic that we got?
Well, I don't believe we would have.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think it would have sat on the market, and then we
agree.
would have had to drop and drop and drop again, and probably get down to that 540 mark, 535 before we got something. And so by pricing a little more aggressive on that 525 side, it created a storm of activity, which was pretty cool.
So pretty quickly by Thursday, we're like, we have all we need. We have the activity that we can close this on our schedule. So we set a deadline of Monday for all offers.
Noon. Yep.
And then that really became the process. And I think the next part of the process that I think is worth sharing is we have all these engaged people, and they realize when they were just doing a showing with 3 other groups, they know there's a lot of activity. So they're at their very best, and they're simply asking us, we're thinking this, how would that do? Would that get us to the top? And it created this really unique, perfect storm as a real estate agent, a listing agent, to say, no, I don't think that would.
You got to be north of this.
You got to be north of this.
Yep.
And little by little, we were able to normalize and elevate all offers across the board. And that's true of the investors, as well as, more importantly, with this excited group we had of
Owner-occupants.
buyers.
Yeah, yep,
So
definitely.
through that weekend, it kind of set ourselves up for a kind of a tough,
Monday, Tuesday.
Busy. It's busy when you got that
It was
much
busy.
communication and
Yeah, in a
activity.
heartbeat. It was great.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Because things were, a lot of people said, hey, I really liked it, but that's just too much work.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, and
Or I
most,
can't go that far, so we have to bow out.
yeah. What a contrast too from like the normal process of like what most homeowners do right now. We lead the nation in price cuts, price reductions in Denver.
Denver market.
And so
not surprised.
like most people in Denver are setting a price that is kind of a bold price and then hoping and praying that somebody comes to look at it and let alone offers on it. And then when they don't, they react to it and they drop, and then they drop again and then drop again. And that's what's typical, multiple price drops before you get to an equilibrium of value, And so I remember Chad saying when we were talking through this, and he was like, it's like we set our own market here. Like we
really-
created a
yes.
market, which was kind of cool.
Well, again,
So-
but that's the way we were talking to ourselves.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of skepticism from the investors that we knew that we were going to find that buyer. We had an interested neighbor, and we nurtured that.
Yeah, we did.
And eventually they said that's a little too rich for our blood, just the amount of work. But if we were going to make this work, we had to engage those. So this notion of creating our own marketplace,
Yeah.
I think I wrote that in the lead up. Like, real estate's a pretty efficient marketplace as a whole, right? Different variations by market, but less so at the micro level on the individual house. So we really set out to say, if we got to find this marketplace, and one easiest way to do that is with price.
Yeah.
But through the course of that weekend, we had a really, really vibrant marketplace going, and little by little,
Definitely.
it was so
Organic.
organic. But like as an agent, to be able to be so, transparent without, always being true to everyone's trust, to get the very best out of everyone. That's kind of a once, maybe, knock on wood, it may be a once in a lifetime experience. Hopefully not, but you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad was extremely happy with it.
Yeah,
He
we're
was
giving
willing
him
to.
That's
updates.
awesome.
Yeah, we were giving him updates all along, and he could not believe how many people. And then, my mom has dementia, and one of the things, her house is her pride and joy. And so I was able to tell her, you had 140 people come through your house,
Yeah.
and it pushed the price up. And for that was enough for her to just feel really good about what happened in the end. So making both my parents proud, is just an added benefit of this whole process.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
It was
really
very
cool.
rewarding there.
Love
So
to
we
hear that.
zeroed in.
Yeah,
Question?
they lived there, 40 years? So,
Yeah, 40 years.
So it just validates that, hey, we bought well 40 years ago,
That's
right? To get that 140 showings. So
Absolutely.
And it also shows that the market in Denver is, people are listing their homes and doing a good job of making them show ready and that type of stuff. There's not as many fixer-uppers, if you will, for people to earn sweat equity. And this one is where an owner occupant could put some time. It was perfectly livable, but you could put some time and money into it and make it, even bigger. And it's a limited market right now when you have such a compressed or small amount of inventory in comparison to what you've seen in the past. So
Yeah, for sure.
just
I
echo
think
that.
we got a lot of that from the potential buyers saying, we're not going to rush at it. We're going to do a bathroom to start, but we're going to take our time and spread that out.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it too, like how important is affordability in this market? Like that was the big glowing message that I got from this is like, there were that many people that just want to jump on something that they can get for less, and they're willing to do work, but the affordability trumped the amount of work and hassle that they would have to go through. And so,
Not for everybody. A lot of people are very candid. Like,
It's too much.
We talked about it. We just don't think we can
yeah.
tackle that much.
But having how many offers? 23 out of 141.
It's pretty impressive.
That's a lot of people that move forward with an offer, that were willing to do that. So
23 offers, and of those 13 were non-investors. So again, I'm really not trying to diss on the investor, but we have to pay their return by
margin.
selling to them.
Yeah.
So we're pretty happy to have that. And then through the course of that weekend, we were able to get everyone up to a very similar price point. I think maybe the most rewarding is when you have a home that's 50 years old, and we haven't put that much into it in 40 years, waiting on what comes out of the inspection was something.
We didn't know.
Yeah,
We didn't know.
Magic 8 Ball.
And when the first offer essentially waived their inspection objection, save termination, they could always terminate, we were able to get everyone on that page. And I think that's probably the most important variable we found. Normally, price is always number one. Quality of money is usually up there. In the grand scheme of things, that really didn't register, whether there was a 20% down or cash or
Financed.
less down, was just less important to us here than it normally would be.
yeah.
And in the end, one of the winning agent was willing to take less themselves that I could not share with anyone, but that changed the dynamic, and it made it very hard for anyone to compete with that. And that was ultimately the win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was by, 3:00 on that Monday, the second Monday.
Yep.
And we walked over to her dad and walked him through and showed him all 23 and showed him where we thought it was pointing, and he signed right away.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. I love hearing a success story like this, and it doesn't happen without awesome people, that we get to work with. So we appreciate you and your parents and the opportunity to work with you on this. And we're so happy to hear that they were thrilled with the results. And,
Yeah.
it's
It's
just
been a great experience. It really was.
Good.
To have a partner with Chad and with you all, just really think through what is the best way to approach this.
yeah.
In the end, and it happened so fast too. Was it like we were closed within a few weeks of
It's-
that offer?
It's
Yeah.
hard not to be a little proud. I think we did so many things right. But we didn't do anything wrong, is maybe the better way to say it. We didn't close the door to anyone, and then we didn't know how wide open it would swing. But all we were looking for is two, right? All we're ever looking for is two people, and if you can get that to compete, and what we got was just so much more than that.
Yeah.
I think I wrote in, preparing for this, friends are one thing. Friends, people think different things. I love working with friends because it shows a level of trust, and I think, I care probably more about friends just from the history. I think I put my best foot forward. I think that's true with everyone I work with, but I love the opportunity to work with friends. And then we had worked on the cabin they had up in Bailey last summer. So I think there was pretty good trust already between your dad.
Yeah, my dad was
Yes.
happy with that. So he trusted Chad's judgment on this and recommendations. And some of those conversations were hard to have with him too, because he had this dream, and Chad had to kind of talk him down
This
a
was in
little.
the cabin?
The cabin and
Yeah.
with the house, I think you had to talk him down. But
That's
the way
the-
that you approached it really did work for him, and he understood, and he got on board pretty quickly.
That's great.
Yeah, that was the research we did with the investors, with you guys coming in. That's what we really sat down to talk.
That's
through.
exactly it.
This is what we know, and if you feel good about that, we can do that today.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do anything else.
Yep.
That doesn't feel like the best we can do. And he agreed, so we went live, and then net, it's almost $100,000 he netted.
Yeah.
It's exactly $100,000.
Without me having to manage contractors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Terrible
there
to
you
say,
go.
but I'm like,
No,
not easy to do.
That's a bit. It takes a special person and a special set of patience to be able to do all of that, and
time.
yeah, and some people are really good at it, but if you only do it once every 10 years, it's a
becomes more,
challenge.
yeah,
right?
it can be
It's-
frustrating.
Yep. So, but things like that happen. Like everything breaks. There's always a contingency. Like
Yep.
So if you you get numb to that a little bit, it's easier to deal with. But once every 10 years, it can be kind of frustrating. So I get it.
Yep.
So, but no, it's good that you guys had the ability to put that trust in Chad. He's already built up part of that relationship with you. But no, we walked through the home, and after hearing the story, and I heard the number of showings that were scheduled already, I was just like, that's impressive. So, but it just again echoes the affordability in the marketplace.
I
So
think that's how we started this, is where was the market? We knew it was kind of poised. The market's alive and well, but you have to price accordingly. We've talked a lot in the last several months about, in my perception, any listing agent who was alive and working in 2021, you're used to what you're used to, and the analysis we do to create valuation and comparables were spot on, but the market was bleeding a little down and we were playing catch up. And I feel like in your case, last spring, we really hit it.
Yeah.
And we weren't lowering our price. We still do sometimes.
Yeah.
But pricing, we just put it at a place where no one could look at that and say, I have a problem with that price.
Well, here's the thing, right? The what created that frenzy back in 2021, 2022 spring was shortage of supply and everybody gobbling up that supply and too many buyers for that supply. Well, if you want to create a market right now, you put a price point that there's nobody else is competing with right now. That's the best thing on the market. And when there's only one of those and a lot of people that are looking for that one thing, it's going to go up, and you have to trust it though. It's scary sometimes.
That was a little hard.
Yeah.
That part of it, I remember being like, God, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah.
But market worked.
Yeah.
It showed it.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced we couldn't apply a very similar strategy. What Landon's saying is you have to change the game. And sometimes changing the game is going to a price tier that no one expects this home to be in to get everyone's eyes on it.
And
then you just need
A few of them.
20 help, but you just need 2 to get back.
yeah, the market will
Under
correct. The market will dictate whether you're priced too high or priced too low. In this case, good strategy. It was priced lower and it got brought up. You're priced too high. You don't get 141 showings. You get 1 to 4 showings in a month.
If we
So,
had listed this home at 580, we would not have had showings.
yep.
Yeah.
Now you're chasing it the other direction. So.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, Amy, thank you for coming in and joining us
Yeah.
today. We appreciate you doing that and taking some time. And on this show, we like to try to give a really clear picture of where the market's at, and understanding that so that our listeners can see that. And this hopefully gave some really good insight to a specific home and a specific situation of where the market's at and where it can be, for you or anybody else who's listening. And so if anybody, has that kind of a need, especially with so many people going through aging parents and trying to care for them and multi-generational living right now and all of that's going on, it's happening more and more. We hear about more and more situations like that. That's definitely something that we specialize in, would love to help with. So give us a call and we'd love to talk about your specific situation. And we'll wrap up with that. I guess we'll see you on the next episode.